Shana Tova. Welcome to Congregation Beth Emek. We're so grateful that you are joining us for worship on this most holy day on the Jewish calendar. Whether you are a member of our congregation or friend or family, or joining us from near and far, we are glad that you are here. I invite you to join in all of our prayers and songs. Some of you have prayer books at home, but if you don't, there is one on our website right next to this stream called Mishkan HaNefesh. Yom Kippur is a time of deep reflection. The past year has seen turmoil, the likes of which are unknown in the lives of many of us. For others, this year has brought up memories of past challenges to our health and to the fabric of our society. We come together because prayer centers us. It enables us to feel whole amidst brokenness. Prayer is not an escape. It leads us to better lives. I wish you an easy fast, a day of thoughtful reflection, a time set aside to consider what each of us can do to mend the hurts in our lives and to bring repair to a broken world. Our Yom HaKippurim candles will be lit this evening by Lisa Kama. Please turn to page 9.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotov v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Yom HaKippurim.
Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, teaching us holiness through sacred obligations, giving us the mitzvah of bringing light on Yom Kippur.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kimanu v'hegianu lazman hazeh.
Source of blessing, eternal our God, you fill the universe with majestic might, giving us life, upholding the life within us, and bringing us to this time.
Page 15. Kol Nidre, a chant that begins in a whisper and rises to a cry. On this night of promises remembered, Each soul in solitude communes with the soul of the universe. God, from this day of atonement to the next, may we reach it in peace. All Israel makes these vows: to turn from wrong, dishonesty, and greed, to walk in the path of justice and right. Yet we know our weakness, how prone we are to fail. Help us to keep our word. Help us to act with humility and integrity. We seek pardon and forgiveness. We seek your radiance and light.
Zaru ala tzadik, u'yishrei lev simcha. 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 U'yishrei lev simcha.
With one voice, assembled sages past and present declare, all may pray as one on this night of repentance. Let none be excluded from our community of prayer. With one voice, God and congregation proclaim, all may pray as one on this day of return. Let all find a place in this sacred assembly.
Vesare vacharame vikoname vichinuye vikinuse ushevut Kol Nidre vesare vacharame vikoname Vichinuye vikinuse ushevut Kol Nidre vesare vacharame vikoname Vichinuye vikinuse ushevut Din darna ureishtebana ureacharimna vidasana al nafshatana Yom Kippurim ze an Yom Kippurim haba aleinu litova kulhon icharat navehon Kulhon Yehon Sheran Shvikin Shevitin Betelin Umvutalin La Sharirin Vela Kayamin Nidrana la nidre, vesarana laisare. Ushivu atana la shivot.
All shall be forgiven, the entire community of Israel, and the stranger who lives in their midst, for all have gone astray in error. Moses prayed to God, as you have been faithful to this people ever since Egypt, please forgive their failings now in keeping with your boundless love. And God responded, I forgive as you have asked.
Vayomer Adonai, salachti kidvarecha. Vayomer Adonai, salachti kidvarecha. Vayomer Adonai, salachti kidvarecha.
We continue on page 22. You may be seated. Page 25.
Day and night are yours, creative spirit of the universe. The muted colors of twilight, the radiance of dawn. Yours are the spreading wings of light, the deepening shadows of darkness, an ever-changing drama. In the human heart, too, the struggle between darkness and light unfolds. From sunlit heights of generosity, the human heart sinks to the gloomy depths of selfishness. Although we fall, you give us the strength to rise again. You call on those who hurt through word or deed to break free from wrongdoing and return to you. All who hear your call to goodness are embraced. All who reject emptiness and evil find acceptance from you. We come into your presence this night of Kol Nidre, aware that our shortcomings and weaknesses are many. Yet, encouraged by your promise of forgiveness, we choose freely the path of repentance, restoring wholeness to our lives and holiness to the world. Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. Blessed are you, Adonai, creator of twilight and dusk.
Page 28.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Mahuto Leolam Vayed.
B'chol levavecha, uv'chol nafshecha, uv'chol be'adecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anohi mitzavecha, hayom alevavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibartam b'shivtecha, בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, וכי אתם קדושים אלוהיהם. אני אדוני אלוהיהם, אשר הוצאתי אתם מארץ מצרים, להיות להם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיהם.
We continue on page 39.
Our sages taught it is proper to mention the exodus from Egypt in our morning prayers and also at night. We celebrate the going out from Egypt in the morning light, full of confidence and vigor as we enter the new day. But in the evening, worry and weary from the day's exertions, cast down and fearful at the coming of night, what can the Exodus teach us then? Our nighttime prayer brings hope and trust in the future. As God did not abandon our people long ago, through the long, dark nights of exile, so the Holy One will be with us in time to come. To stand by the one you love, that is the true essence of faithfulness, the meeting of emunah. So it is written in the Psalms, to proclaim your kindness in the morning and your faithfulness in the nights. Sing with joy in the mornings of your life, when light surrounds you and the world seems beautiful and good. And in the evenings of your life, when you dwell in sorrow and the world seems dark, do not despair.
Page 42. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom Hamidenu Shomreinu Lechaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom V'hamidenu Shomreinu We rise now for the tefillah. Please turn to page 46.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha Eternal God, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei hakol, V'zocher chasdei avot v'imahot, U'mevi gula livnei v'nehem, L'ma'an shemo be'ahava. Zochreinu lechaim, Melech hafetz b'chaim, Melech hafetz b'chaim. V'chodeinu v'sefer ha'chaim, Lemancha Elohim chaim. Melech ozer u'moshiach u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Izrat Sarah.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל, ואתה להושיע, מחלקל חסד בחיים, מחיי הכל, ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בגבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. מי כמוך אף הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. Baruch atah Adonai, Mahayeh HaKol.
You may be seated. We continue now on page 71.
On this night of atonement, grant us, God, a sense of your presence as we call upon your name. Speak your hopeful message to each yearning heart and answer the worthy petitions of each searching soul. Purify and strengthen our noble strivings and cleanse us all of our unworthy desires. Join us together in fellowship and in love, and grant us the joy which comes from enriching other lives. Help us to be loyal to the heritage we share. Draw us near to Torah in wisdom and in faith. Strengthen our devotion to our people everywhere. Keep alive our faith in righteousness and in truth. Bless us with hopes to uplift our daily lives, and keep steadfast our courage and our resolve at all times. On this night of atonement, help us, God, to be worthy of your presence as we call upon your name.
As we call upon your name, page 72. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu Ba'amecha Yisrael U'tefilatam Be'ahava tikabel. Humbled in prayer, we seek to reach you, hoping to be heard. Hearts open wide, longing to be true. Oh, let us know that you are near. Open our hearts that we may hear the still clear voice within us all. May we be worthy in our prayer and feel your presence everywhere. May we answer when you call. Say Adonai Eloheinu Ba'amecha Yisrael U'tefilatam Be'ahava tikabel. Oh, let us know that you are near. Open our hearts that we may hear the still clear voice within us all. May we be worthy in our prayer and feel your presence everywhere. May we answer when you call. And may you answer when we call. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu. Page 74.
God who is ours, God of all generations. God, to you we are grateful forever. Rock and protector of our lives, your saving power endures from age to age. We thank you and tell the tale of your praise, your power in our lives, your caring for our souls, the constant miracle of your kindness. Morning, noon, and night, we call you goodness, for your compassion never ends. We call you mercy, for your love has no limit. We call you hope, now and for all time. And for all these gifts, God of majesty, may your name come to be blessed and praised. Our gratitude a daily offering until the end of time. Inscribe your covenant partners for a life of goodness. And may all life resound with gratitude and faith in praise of your name. God, you free us and strengthen us. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'el lahodos. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose goodness deserves thanks and praise.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amacha Tasim Atahu melech adon lechol hashalom levarech et amcha Yisrael betchol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך ספר חיים ברכה ושלום ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה ברכה ושלום נזכר וניכתב לפניך אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים ושלום ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
You can find words for silent meditation on pages 80 and 81. Let's take a moment for silent prayer.
Shalom bimromav uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
We continue with Vidui on page 82.
Our God and God of all generations, may our prayers reach your presence, and when we turn to you, do not be indifferent. Adonai, we are arrogant and stubborn, claiming to be blameless and free of sin. In truth, we have stumbled and strayed. We have done wrong.
Yai, 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 yai. Asham nu, Bagad nu, God sal nu, departed dofi. Yai, 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 yai. Hevinu, Irshanu, Sadu, Hasmanu, Tafanu Shaker, Yai, 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 yai. Ya'atznu kisafnu Atznu Madranu Niatznu Saranu Avinu Pashanu Zaranu Kishinu Orev Ya 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 Rashanu Shihatnu Ti'avnu Ta'inu Titanu.
When I was young and I learned the alphabet, life was open to me. A was full of aspiration, B was for beauty, C for confidence, and D for dreams. And so on through the list, no fewer than 26 opportunities, 26 possibilities. And yet I fear that with the passage of time, I've squandered them, creating instead A's of apathy, B's of brusqueness, and C's of coarseness. Help me then to return to that innocence. Let the letters be letters once again, and let them rise to the heavens and form into the words that you know I wish to say.
Page 86. I invite you to read along with me in Hebrew and in English, the long vidui. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'zadon uvishgaga, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'dibur peh. The ways we have wronged you deliberately and by mistake, and harm we have caused in your world through the words of our mouths. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'imutz halev, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'tivshut peh. The ways we have wronged you by hardening our hearts, and harm we have caused in your world through careless speech. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chachash uvchazav, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'rechilut. The ways we have wronged you through lies and deceit, and harm we have caused in your world through gossip and rumor. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'flilut, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'zilzul horim umorim. The ways we have wronged you by judging others unfairly, and harm we have caused in your world through disrespect to parents and teachers. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'vidui peh, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'hona'at re'ah. The ways we have wronged you through insincere apologies, and harm we have caused in your world by mistreating a friend or neighbor. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'chozek yad, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'masa uvmatan. The ways we have wronged you through violence and abuse, and harm we have caused in your world through dishonesty in business. Va'al kulam eloah slichot, salach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement.
Ve'al kulam eloah sleichot, Esleach lanu, michal lanu, kaper lanu. Ve'al kulam eloah selichot, selach lanu, michal lanu, selach lanu, michal lanu, kaper lanu.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'galui uvasater, V'al chet shechatanu lefanecha befrikat ol. The ways we have wronged you openly and secretly, and harm we have caused in your world by losing self-control. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha begilui arayot, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'ma'achal uv'mishteh. The ways we have wronged you through sexual immorality, and harm we have caused in your world through consumption of food and drink. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'yetzer hara, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'neshech uv'marbit. The ways we have wronged you by giving in to our hostile impulses, and harm we have caused in your world through greed and exploitation. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'latzon, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'nitiyat garon. The ways we have wronged you through cynicism and scorn, and harm we have caused in your world through arrogant behavior. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'sinat chinam, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'tum'at sfatayim. The ways we have wronged you by hating without cause, and harm we have caused in your world through offensive speech. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'lshon hara, v'al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'tzarut ayin. The ways we have wronged you with a slanderous tongue, and harm we have caused in your world through a selfish or petty spirit. V'al kulam elo aslichot, salach lanu, machal lanu, kaper lanu. For all these failures of judgment and will, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement.
Ve'al kulam elo selichot, selach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu. Ve'al kulam elo selichot, selach lanu, mechal lanu, selach lanu, mechal lanu, kaper lanu.
Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu. Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu. Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu. Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu. Hus v'rachem aleinu v'kabel berachamim uvratzon et tefilatenu. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva. Chadesh Yameinu kekedem. Chadesh Yameinu kekedem. Adonai Eloheinu. On page 103, we continue with the piyut, a poem called Ki Hine Kachomer. I invite you to pay careful attention to the language in this poem. We're going to come back to it in a bit. Page 103.
Consider the clay in the potter's hand, stretched and rolled as the artist desires.
So are we in your hand, our loving protector. Look to the covenant, not to our imperfection.
Consider the stone in the mason's hand, broken or kept whole, as the stonecutter sees fit.
So are we in your hand, creator of life and death. Look to the covenant, not our imperfection.
Consider the iron in the welder's hand, held to the flame or removed at will.
So are we in your hand, provider for the poor and afflicted. Look to the covenant, not our imperfection.
Consider the helm in the seafarer's hand, steering or drifting as the sailor wills it.
So are we in your hand, our God of goodness and forgiveness. Look to the covenant, not our imperfection.
Consider the glass in the glazier's hand, rounded and melted as the artist desires.
So are we in your hand, the one who pardons our errors and our wrongdoing. Look to the covenant, not our imperfection.
I think we'll try that again. I invite you to rise for Avinu Malkeinu. Page 114. Please join me. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, hear our voice. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol Aleinu Va'al Olaleinu V'tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and on our families. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Dever V'cherev V'ra'av Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger. Avinu Malkeinu, Kalei Kol Tsar Umastin Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror. Avinu Malkeinu, Kotvenu B'Sefer Chayim Tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived. Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, Malei Yadenu Miberchotecha. Avinu Malkeinu, let our hands overflow with your blessings. Avinu Malkeinu, Harem Keren Mishichecha. Avinu Malkeinu, let our eyes behold the dawn of redemption. At the bottom of page 115, Avinu Malkeinu, Chonenu Va'anenu, Ki ein banu ma'asim, Asei imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamo Aleinu, Ve'al Oaleinu, V'tapenu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kale Dever, V'cherev V'ra'av, Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kale Chotza, Umastin, Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Kotvenu B'Sefer Chayim Tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Ameinu, Chadesh Aleinu, Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu, Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu, Shema Kolenu, Shema Kolenu.
You may be seated. When my son Avi was in high school, he took up glass blowing as a hobby. Glass blowing is an intense, dangerous, and wondrous art form. The artist is working in front of a flaming hot furnace with a long metal tube and a blob of molten glass on one end. In and out of the furnace it goes, with the shaping taking place in the brief window of time during which the glass is malleable. Colored glass can be added, the glass can be stretched and pulled, but often as not, the whole thing comes crashing down and the artist has to start all over again. It is a muscular and humbling art form, precisely because of how challenging it is. What's more is that you may start out trying to make one thing, say a vase, but the glass drips just a little too much one way or another, and what comes out seems more destined to be a pumpkin. We wound up with a lot of glass pumpkins at home. Even the simplest glass that Avi created, say a tumbler with just an edge of color, looked like a miracle to me. To Avi, it was a cast-off. He knew that he was aiming for something more refined that I couldn't even imagine. With glass, we are quite willing to say that the artist gets to determine what the objective is. And if it doesn't come out right, the artist gets to try again. We are less willing to see our lives as continually in a process of being recreated, refined, reshaped. We want to be a finished product, content with ourselves. And we really don't like the heat of change. This is the metaphor that is so challenging in our Yom Kippur liturgy. And it helps to look at the metaphor from the perspective of an artist. We are familiar with some passages in the Yom Kippur liturgy that seem like favorites, the prayers that we recognize easily from year to year. Kol Nidre, Avinu Malkeinu, Al Chet Chatanu. The liturgy for the evening of Yom Kippur, however, includes an entire section that is a series of poems called Slichot, songs of forgiveness. These poems have an abundance of rich imagery, are filled with rhythmic phrases, but may strike the modern reader as arcane, difficult to understand and interpret. We skip past these passages to our own detriment, as they contain treasures of Jewish creativity. Take a look at that poem that I mentioned just a little while ago on page 103. Open up to page 103. Take a look, scroll down to the last verse of the poem. Consider the glass in the glazier's hand, rounded and melted as the artist desires. So are we in your hand, the one who pardons our errors and our wrongdoing. The translation is exquisite, as it has a precise rhythm. One should note that it is not a literal translation at all, because the Hebrew also has a pattern. But you can't duplicate the beat, the repetition of the Hebrew. Birtzoto chogeg uvirtzoto mimogeg, into another language. All the translator can do is create a pattern, a sense that the words feel as though they bounce off of one another. We are glass. Initially, we are struck by a theology in the prayer against which we protest. You, God, don't control me. And that has to be true. If God controlled us, we really wouldn't be responsible for our actions. How could this be our theology, particularly on a day when we ask God to forgive us for our sins, for the things we did wrong that were our own fault? No, we protest, we are not raw material shaped by God. I'll own my faults, but at least they are mine, and I have the free will to determine my own direction. If I want to be a vase or a pumpkin, it's my choice, not God's. But that's the beauty of poetry. which invites us to re-examine our frame of reference. It is not that our claim is wrong. We have free will, and we are responsible for our actions. The poem, however, seeks to push past our insistence that I'm my own boss to get to another dimension of human nature. We are glass. We are not permanently who we think we are. That's just the way I am is a poor response to the heat of being challenged. We are fluid, changing, only taking the form of the person we are for the moment. You and I may have our personalities, like the physical properties of the glass or the clay or the metal being worked by the artist, but even our personal inclinations, our predispositions do not dictate what we will be. My cousin hammers metal. He makes bowls, but also unusual shapes that look strangely organic for something made out of a hard and somewhat unforgiving material. He likes working with copper. It has beauty, he says, but is not so easily pushed around as silver. He may start aiming in one direction, but the metal kind of goes its own way, and he may wind up with something that is as much a function of his interaction with the material as it is his intent. And this is the wonder of this prayer. We stand in relationship with God. At first glance, the prayer appears to suggest that God is in control. Only on a deeper level, it is about relationship. Ki hine kachomer, the name of the prayer, comes from the opening lines. Consider the clay in the potter's hand, stretched and rolled as the potter desires. So are we in your hand, our loving protector. This poem is called a piyut, a kind of poem which weaves biblical texts into a new form. Let's dig beneath the surface of the poem to see where it comes from. The ur-text of the poem is a line from the prophet Jeremiah. Go down to the potter's studio and observe, God tells Jeremiah. If the potter does not like what he has made, he takes the clay and remakes it. Am I not like that potter? At the studio, Jeremiah observes the potter at the wheel. The word for a potter's wheel is ovnayim, plural for even, which means stone. A potter's wheel has two stones, a kick stone, manipulated by the feet, connected by an axle to a stone for the clay, hence ovnayim, stones. But ovnayim has another meaning. In Exodus, the midwives, Shifra and Puah, save the Hebrew boys at the ovnayim, the birth stools. The stones, the ovnayim, represent the moment of coming into being for a person at the hands of the midwives, just like for the vessel in the hands of the potter. God's message to Jeremiah is a warning. Israel should not regard itself as secure. I can remake you. And then comes the key phrase, which ties the text to the theme of Yom Kippur. Rather than say, well, I see you are a crummy vase, I'll just smash you and start over, God pleads instead, turn back, each of you, from your wicked ways, and mend your ways and your actions. Or in the epic translation by Santana, you've got to change your evil ways, baby. The key word is shuvu, turn back, like teshuvah, returning, going back to clay, going back to the molten shape of possibility before we hardened our habits and claim, as Jeremiah describes the Israelites, saying, it's no use, we will just keep on doing the same. The principle in the poem is one of relationship, not one of control. The key is in the refrain. After exploring each medium, clay, stone, iron, the sails of a ship, the glass, the poem returns to a refrain. Look to the covenant, not our imperfection. Covenant implies relationship. It implies give and take. There is fluidity in our behavior, always the possibility of change, of transformation, something more beautiful. We might need a little push, some encouragement, lest we solidify into our imperfection. A glass blower fills the glass with breath. How can something as ephemeral, as light as breath, transform material into fantastic shapes? Only when we are in a fluid state, a state prepared for transformation, a condition of teshuvah, can the ruach, the breath, work its magic. This is such a moment. We strip away the rigidity of our lives, accept that we can grow, become something even more beautiful, more sublime. We do not cease being ourselves. We simply open up to what we can be. Prayer is the furnace. In and out of the furnace, we place ourselves, a new self taking shape during the brief window of time in which the self is malleable. In this sense, my son was correct about his initial forays into glass blowing. He could see something in the glass that I didn't. Looked good enough to me. But in his eyes, as in God's eyes, there is always the possibility of being something, someone better. And now, Lisa Kama, I believe, is there to share some announcements with us. Lisa?
Good evening. I'm Lisa Kama, President of Congregation Beth Emek. I'm in the final year of my presidency, and this is not what I imagined. A worldwide pandemic that requires us to stay at home for months on end was not something I ever could have dreamed of. I looked forward to the final year of my presidency. With 3 years of experience under my belt, I thought I'd be so competent at taking care of the stuff that always needs to happen that finally I would have time to do more of the stuff I love to do, like creating opportunities to bring our community together. There's an old Yiddish saying, man tracht und Gott lacht, meaning man plans and God laughs. I am very much a planner, and I do not like when my plans get interrupted. But interrupted plans create space for new plans and new opportunities. Tonight, I'm not interested in dwelling on all that we have lost in these past 6 months. Instead, I want to focus on the positive, on everything we've gained. To begin with, let's acknowledge how we were able to gather tonight online. Purchasing streaming equipment and software had been on our list of wants for quite a while, but other projects always seemed to take priority. Now, with the impetus of the pandemic and a generous grant from the Contra Costa JCC, we have the infrastructure to stream all of our worship. This is hugely beneficial right now when none of us can be present, but it will also benefit us going forward, even when we can resume worship in person. Those who aren't able to join us, either due to illness or bedtime schedules or distance, will always be able to tune in and be a part of our community. Despite not being able to join together in person, engagement amongst our members is up. We have a larger number of people joining us for online worship than we often did in person. Also, enrollment in our 2 fall adult education courses, Getting Comfortable with Jewish Prayers and The Origins of Anti-Semitism, is higher than most of our adult ed classes in previous years. I attribute this to the convenience of participating from home. Our congregants continue to make connections with each other. We have a team of volunteers who have been regularly calling folks who might be isolated. We also have volunteers calling members on their birthdays and anniversaries, unless you've never given us your birthday or anniversary, and then we can't call. Some of these phone calls have developed into connections that will undoubtedly last long after this pandemic is over. And finally, the virtual world we now live in has broadened our programming opportunities. Without needing to pay for travel expenses, we are able to bring in guest speakers who before weren't an option, and therefore have welcomed speakers from across the country and Israel. Also, because everything is online, it is much easier to coordinate with other Jewish organizations in the Bay Area, like Under One Tent, the East Bay JCC, and the Jewish Federation, to offer joint programming, as distance is no longer an issue for our members. I never could have imagined living through a time like we are experiencing now. I find comfort and solace in the strength of the Beth Emet community, and I hope that you do too. If you need support in any way, please reach out to myself, to Rabbi Milder, or to any of our lay leaders. On behalf of my husband Alon and my sons Geffen and Matan, I wish you an easy rest of your fast and a sweet, happy, and most importantly, healthy new year. Gemar Chatima Tova.
Thank you, Lisa. Our service continues with Aleinu on page 116. I invite you to rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'ateit gedula liotze bereshit, shelo asanu kogoye haratzot, ve'lo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kocho hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, Baruch Hu.
Page 119.
May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved, each of us, for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
V'ne'emar v'haya lemelech al kol haaretz, v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
Page 121. Our thoughts turn to loved ones whom death has taken from us in recent days, and those who died at this season in years past. Our hearts open as well to the wider circles of loss in our community and wherever grief touches the human family. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing in this new year and always. I invite you to join me in Mourner's Kaddish on page 122. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ba'alma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal, Shemei de Kudisha Berich Hu, La'ela Ula'ela Mikol Birchata V'Shirata, Tush Bechata V'Nechamata, Da'amiran Ba'alma V'Imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'Chayim Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Mamav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us all say, Amen. You may be seated. Our closing song is Adon Olam, page 126. There we go. Adon Olam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra, Le'et Nasa, B'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech, Shemo Nikra, Azai Melech, Shemo Nikra, V'yacharei Kiklot HaKol, V'at Lok Nora, V'hu Haya, V'hu Hoveh, V'hu Yiyeh, V'tifara, V'hu Yiyeh, V'hu Echad, V'yein Sheni, V'ham Shilo, V'hakbira, V'li Reishit, V'li Tachlit, V'lo Ha'oz, V'hamisra, V'lo Ha'oz, V'hamisra, V'hu Eli, V'chai Goali, V'tzor Pevli, V'yetzara, V'hu Nisi, Umanosli, Menat Kosi, V'yom Ekra, Menat Kosi, V'yom Ekra, V'yado, Avkir Ruchi, V'yetishat, V'yayira, V'im Ruchi, Gaviati, Adonai li, V'lo ira, Adonai li, V'lo ira. Our God and God of our ancestors, eternal God of all generations, may your presence in our lives this new year renew our spirits and renew our strength. May it be a good year. May it be a sweet year. L'shana tova tikatevu v'techatemu. May you be inscribed and sealed for a good year. Shana tova.